Alright, so to be honest, this is a story I never thought I'd tell. Not that it's bad or anything, I just didn't think anyone would care. And I kind of wanted to keep my personal and professional life separate and not have this be the thing that defines me as a creator. But after 2 years and about 200 videos of me gushing over gay shit and just being the biggest sentimental bitch I possibly could be, that idea got shot in the back of the head. So since the world is on fire and death and sadness are everywhere, I started looking at a lot of gay stuff on YouTube and somehow got recommended to a bunch of coming out stories, and they all had one thing in common. They were all tense, fearful, and just really dramatic, even though the stories themselves didn't come across that way. But apparently it's an unwritten rule that if you're not a flamboyant twink, the answer is something like, oh, how dare you, or straight up, I was harassed for seeming gay, when in reality, they didn't come across that way. And I'm not saying those stories weren't valid, and those could honestly help people that are going through the same struggles in school, and I don't want to diminish that. I just personally find it kinda done to death, and I can't personally relate to it because my story's a bit odd. Before I get into the actual details, I need to lay down some groundwork to who I was before I even realized I was gay to begin with. When I was little, like 7, I was diagnosed with autism, which basically means I fumbled through social situations that aren't expressly explained to me. And it took me a long time to be who I am today. So while yes, I was bullied as a kid, and that did, and still does to be honest, color my worldview on how I and others perceive and treat me, it doesn't define me. See, it's really hard to make lasting friends when you're the weird one, but no one takes the time to explain why you're weird and help you to get better in like kindergarten. So with the social aspect of school thoroughly beaten out of me, and not really liking school in general, I began to hate going almost immediately. However, I had one reason to keep going, and that was a girl, who for the sake of privacy I'm going to call Katie. Katie was the first girl I ever loved when I was 6. Now, she didn't like me at all, and honestly I didn't understand emotions or how relationships work. She was just very tomboyish and treated me with common decency. Again, the bar was set exponentially low, but why did they think I was in love with her? Well, it kind of comes back to my home life. See, at home, my parents loved each other and are still together and happier than ever to this day. They talked, made each other laugh, loved me and my 3 siblings, and overall we had a really nice home life that I wouldn't trade for the world. How does this relate to Katie and the other girls I would erroneously think I was in love with before the age of 10? Well, the simple fact was that in my head it was simple math, something I was and still am extremely good at to this day. Kindness plus pretty equals liking me, because at the time in the early 2000s there was no real gay representation other than a few sitcoms like Will and Grace, but even then I didn't see those till I was in my early 20s. So again, my brain filled in the gaps and kinda made me low-key creepy. I mean, I wasn't stalking her or anything. I mean, I was 6 after all. I just really liked her and wanted her to get to know me. Fast forward a couple of years when I was in middle school, and then it's like the middle of 8th grade. There's another girl, and we're gonna call her Janet. I had met her in 6th grade and basically repeated the same thing as before. And yes, there were other girls that fell into the same pattern throughout my pre-pubescent life, but we're not talking about those. It also doesn't hurt that these were almost all the popular girls at the school in question, so basically they paid attention to me out of pity. Katie and I eventually became decent friends after I got the hint, but Janet, well, let's just say she got worse over time. So here's where the actual story begins. It was 8th grade, just before Christmas. I'm newly 14, and for whatever reason, I was really mad at Janet that day. I feel like she was blowing me off or yelled at me for basically saying hi, and I do mean that in this particular situation, I was just trying to be a good friend and then she just snapped on me, which is understandable. She was going through something. I'm not saying that she wasn't, I'm just in the moment I was mad. So I'm standing at my locker with 2 friends I had somehow managed to make at this point in school, and I looked over to see what she was doing, and I shit you not, may God strike me dead if I'm making this up, I saw this guy who I'd seen around. Hell, I rode the same bus as him and yet had never paid attention to him. And again, I'm not joking here, I remember looking at him and I felt a switch go off of my body, and my first literal thought was, oh fuck, because I knew what gay was, but I didn't think I was because of all the aforementioned girls. It's worth mentioning here, I had never kissed a girl or held their hand or even been on a date, so I was going off the chaser-chasee thing in my head, which admittedly was kind of romanticized when I was a kid because I was a nerdling. I know, shock horror, but it's true. It was all I knew and all I had to go on. So this oh shit moment happens, and thank God it was right around Christmas, so I had time to go home and do what we all did. Google gay tests and various types of porn to see if I find any of it attractive. Yep, I was as close to 100% gay as I possibly could be. I saw so much boobage, if I never see it again, it will be way too soon. After that frantic cleaning of my internet history, I basically ignored it for the next month or so, until one day I had told some of my friends the lie we all tell, which is the bi lie. No offense to bi or pan or anything else that falls in the middle there, I just know a lot of men and women do this to seem at least half straight, and that's kind of where my head was at. Hell, I even told my second oldest brother and my sister that, and in all honesty, my brother doing a little jump fist bump meant more than anything I'm about to tell you, because my sister and parents, I knew they wouldn't care. For fuck's sake, they had a pot, like in Monopoly, only with real money, to see who I'd come out to. It wasn't a matter of if, but when, which, fair enough, I'm not gonna lie, makes sense in retrospect. So that was fine, that was working, and then one day, I was with my dad and we were driving home from something, and I just kind of blurted it out. I knew he wouldn't care, it was just more of a status update than anything else. So here's where the story takes a turn for the stupid, and I need you to bear with me on this one. So I told my dad, and I knew, for a fact, he would tell my mom, because up until I got them both to stop doing this, they would tell each other all your news before you got to, and any kind of joy of having your own news because they were so proud of you. Which is fine, but it gets a little annoying when you want to be the one to give your own news. However, in this case, it worked out for me because, oh boy, does this story have a fun twist. So, I tell him, and he tells my mom, and he tells her to wait and have me tell her, since it's my news and all, and it's such a big personal thing. 3 days go by, and she's just sitting there waiting for me, only I have no idea because I know Dad told her. So on this day, she finally gets annoyed about it, gets up and corners me in the kitchen, kinda angrily while I'm making myself dinner, and is like, "So, you got something to tell me?" And so I sit there for a second and genuinely try to think, and after a while I went, "No, not really. Why, is there something important I forgot?" And she goes, "Well, you told your dad something," and I was kinda like, "Where's my big news drop?" And I'm like, "Oh, well, he told you, didn't he?" And she's like, "Well, yeah, but I wanted you to tell me too." And I'm like, "Well, do you still love me?" "Yes." "Does this change our dynamic at all?" "Well, no." Honest to God, I'm just like, and this is all 100% true, I'm not making this up, I swear to God. I knew it wouldn't, and that's why I told Dad, so he'd tell you, and as I'm explaining this, she's slowly deflating from me logicking my way out of her being mad. So she's sitting there, all tuckered out from the wind being taken out of her sails, and kind of gives me this look like, "You cheeky bastard, how did you do that?" And to this day, it's one of my favorite stories to tell people about me and my mom. It is so funny and unique, and honestly, I want more stories like this. I know not everyone is as lucky as I am to have a family that is that accepting, but honestly, if you do, I urge you to make a video describing it, because while it seems benign, it's super needed for people who can relate to the bizarre aspect of life like that. Plus, it shows coming out doesn't have to be this sad and tragic thing that you just kind of have to muster through to be valid. I mean, I was picked on for other things that sure as fuck colored my worldview for a while, but it affected my weight and my self-worth in relation to that. Like I said, it was like 5 minutes of panicking and then just updating the people who mattered because I felt like they should know. For those of whom that are wondering, I spent that summer talking to people and accepting that I was fully gay, and decided on the first day of high school I didn't want to deal with the cliches of coming out, and just kind of told people when it came up. Like if guys talked about girls, or the girls I knew talked about guys, I'd chime in and give my 2 cents, and it was honestly one of the easiest things because it was a new school, and while the old adage is kind of corny, it rang true for me. It was literally new school, new me. And while high school wasn't the best time of my life, only real milestone I had was my first kiss with both a boy and a girl, and the girl was one of my best friends who was like, "Can I be your only female kiss just for the honor?" And I was like, "Sure." And so we did. But high school wasn't that great. I'd argue the best time of my life is, well, now. Thanks to you guys. Admittedly, it was made 1,000 times easier due to the fact that I could just be myself and wasn't restricted by what others thought I needed to be, or having a sudden shift in perspective. Either you liked it about me, or you didn't, and that wasn't gonna change. But yeah, guys, even though we be small in numbers, it makes me get up in the morning and try my damnedest to be the best I can be for you, and I have to say thank you for that. So, while my story isn't the most tragic or even that funny, I just thought it was more unique than a lot of other people's that I've heard. I mean, it's funny to me because my mom and my relationship has just been so changed by that event, but the rest seemed pretty normal, and that's what it should be, normal. Because nothing about me changed, just my openness or even awareness of what I was attracted to. And in all honesty, that should be the end of it for everyone. I think treating coming out like as getting a 21 or over driver's license is really what you need to do, since while it is a big milestone, nothing's really changed. My name is Chris, and I hope you all have a fucking awesome day.